Welcome to Sewing Out Loud, the official podcast of Zede Sewing Studio. Here are your hosts, Zede and Mallory.
Sewing Out Loud. Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Mallory Donahue.
And I'm Zede Donahue.
And today we're continuing our series on a garment sewing skill set for someone who's new to garment sewing. And this is in response to a prompt that we got from an Instagram comment. Maple Stitch asked us. She said that she kind of doesn't know where to start to get started with garment sewing. And she's clearly a quilter from her feed. Lots of cute quilt blocks on there. And so we talked last episode about cutting and how we love rotary cutters, how we use them, tips for rotary cutting. So if you haven't listened to that, that should be the previous episode. And today we're going to talk about patterns, garment patterns, pattern envelopes, etc. So Zede, where should we start when talking to a new garment sewer about garment patterns?
I just want to, I'm going to just say this first. It works.
Do it.
When you get a tissue type pattern, if you're cutting the pattern out with scissors, it will tell you to go ahead and not trim the pattern out, and you can cut through the tissue paper, okay, along with cutting out the pattern, and that's fine. If you're using a rotary cutter, you need to cut your pattern out first.
Oh, all the way out.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can cut it. In fact, that was the one time with shears that was always nice is when you got to cut through the tissue paper and the fabric together with the scissors. It was always a much more correct way of doing it.
Right.
But that's just a hint, just so you know.
Well, and you're holding a pattern from Quick Sew.
Right. I am.
And those patterns are always multi-size patterns.
Yes.
So that's really cool, and that's where
Is anything not anymore?
I
don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, you know the bad thing about patterns me talking about patterns now is I draft all of my own patterns.
I'll try to chime in with it.
So if anything's different, let me know.
Oh yeah, they don't do that anymore, Mom. No, we don't say that anymore, Mom. No.
They used to.
It's a multi-size pattern, and so sometimes people really are resistant to this. If you get a multi-size pattern that's extra small and it goes up to extra large, so it's got XS, S, M, L, XL, XXL. Right. I'm really encourage people, do not cut out
trace your pattern.
That pattern. Trace it with some tracing paper. If you're the size large, trace the large. You never know when you might want to make a size extra large or a size medium. And I have seen people, Quick Sew patterns used to be printed on heavy paper that was easy to trace.
I know, and I missed that.
Yeah, so you do know a little bit about that update.
Yeah, I do know that.
But I see people cut into this nice paper.
Okay, well let me say something about that. You're always better off tracing your pattern.
I was gonna say you can't change my mind, Mom.
And there's a couple. There's more than one reason.
Yeah, there's lots of reasons. Go ahead and talk about it.
Okay, so one reason is you always have the master pattern, and if you do make an alteration, you will make it on your copy.
Yep.
You've always got the master pattern. You can use the master pattern again, even if it's a one-size pattern, whatever.
Yeah.
But you've always got that master pattern there. Also, things may change, like your body.
Yeah.
And you may go back to the master and sort of undo some alterations or whatever.
And so we're not going to talk about fit a whole lot, but there is the virtue of being able to blend from a small bust to a large hip.
That's absolutely.
Is that what you're going to say?
Well, no, that wasn't what I was going to say.
Because I told you not to talk about that. Yeah, okay, all right. What were you going to say?
No. The other thing that I like about tracing the pattern is you get to know it.
Amen.
Amen. And I want you to really check it too, and I want you to make sure you transfer all those marks that are on there. Don't leave them out.
Did you just hear what Zede said? Transfer
all the marks.
Jeez.
The other thing I want you to do is put the date on it that you made it or copied it or what.
Yep.
Give yourself notations. I also give myself a notation that says who I made it for and maybe even out of what fabric. I've even been known to put a piece of the fabric in the envelope when I fold it back
You
up
know what
and
I
put it
think sometimes people leave off? The size.
Right.
Because they're like,
Right.
okay, I'm following the size 14 line. I'm
Right.
following the size
Right.
14 line. And then you're like, wait, I lost it. Oh, there's the size 14
Right.
line. And you're thinking about it so much as you trace
Right.
that you don't end up writing it on the back.
And the other thing you need to write definitely is it 5/8 inch or is it
Seam
something
allowance,
else?
yeah, the
Right.
seam
What's the
allowance,
seam
yeah.
allowance?
Mhm.
Whatever.
When you're a beginner, just look through the tracing paper and write down, copy right over the letters.
Right.
Right there
You
on
do
that pattern.
right there.
Yeah.
The other thing that I do when I'm drafting a paper, a pattern, or when I'm using a pattern. In fact, this just happened to me. One time I will use a manufactured pattern. A lot of times, is when I'm sewing for someone else or a child,
Uh-huh.
someone who I have not measured myself. So I did this just recently, making a costume, and I'd made a costume last year, and then I took the commercial pattern, traced it, and then I added the features I wanted to it.
Yeah.
You know, put you know, made a different hemline on the front and whatever, put a belt across the back. This was a vest or whatever. Then this year, I knew that the little boy that I sewed for last year was like the size of the little boy I had to sew for this year. And I took that pattern from last year, okay, traced it again, made it, put the features on I liked. But here's what I had on the pattern envelope. I had, 2015 recital beast costume. So on that pattern envelope, along with all the information that comes with it,
Yeah.
I have the year and what I made out of it already.
And you can remember, oh, the beast costume.
Right.
I remember what I did with I know what that looks like,
Right.
so you had a really good reference to that.
Right. I know, I knew the kid, how old he was when I made
Right.
it, that kind of thing. So anyway, I'm adding to the information that already comes on my
On your pattern.
retail
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
My manufactured pattern. And most of the time, it's going to have on the front of it, it will have a picture. It'll either have a photograph or a drawing. I kind of do like to see a photograph on the front instead of just a sketch. And most times now you'll see a photograph. You don't see sketches, I don't think,
here,
as
let
often as
let
you
me,
used to.
Let me interject.
Okay.
I feel like what's really popular nowadays
Uh-huh.
are these line drawings. They look like computer renderings
Oh,
of
yeah.
the garment, so it doesn't look sketchy or like fashion illustration.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Which I think I think they all have their value.
Right.
Their value. I kind of am liking this more modern like depiction on like the Grain Line Studios Morris blazer or on the Thread Theory like pants, and you can kind of see the lines that the designer was hoping to achieve.
Right, but
With this,
right.
you
But what
know?
I was just going to say is,
Yeah.
then when you turn to the back, you will see the line drawing. A lot of
Yeah,
times.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
So,
But
and you'll see the back of the garment.
yeah, it's sort of cool. It's sort of cool that I guess people are kind of like slimming down this minimalistic kind of
Right.
look. Not every designer. Well,
So-
let's talk
so-
about the back of the envelope,
Well,
right?
but so on the front, you're going to get some sort of visual
Uh-huh.
of what the creator wanted it to look like, or thought it was going to look, or their interpretation of the pattern.
Yep.
And maybe the fabric that it was sewn from, or whatever. On the back, you'll usually see a description of what the pattern is. Is it a dress? Is it pants?
Zede and I are both holding patterns.
Right.
Yours is way more recent than mine. Does this have a date on it?
No, does it have a price tag?
It says 2005.
Oh, then that's when I bought it.
Okay, yeah.
That was Hillary was pregnant in 2005.
Yeah,
probably.
and it says Mrs. Maternity Dress, semi-fitted, A-line or slightly flared wrap dress, below mid-knee or below mid-calf or lower calf, has self-lined or lined bodice, raised waist, and a button or tie end closure. Blah, 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 blah. It tells me what notions I need. It gives me fabric recommendations.
It should say have fabric
Yep.
recommendations, and you should also somewhere have body measurements. And on mine it's on the back of the envelope. I think on yours it's on the tab that it's folded in.
Yeah, so... Sorry.
Are you looking at maternity? What?
It's written in French, too.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Maternity Dress, translated into French, is robe pour la grossesse, which basically means like fat lady.
Big fat robe. That's what it means.
Big fat dress. I'm sorry. Okay, mine has the body measurements on the tab,
On the flap, the envelope
size,
flap.
but also and then it has fabric requirements on the back of the
It will
envelope.
tell you yardage.
Yes.
Yardage, notions, and suggest types of fabric.
Here's something. If maybe you're coming from like the quilting world of, cut out 92 triangles, like we, like to jab a little bit of good-natured fun at, you have picked, I want to make this size pillow, or I want to make this size bedspread, and now we get into the very sensitive issue of talking about dress size. You know, and pattern sizing is different per company, and you'll probably wear a bigger size in a sewing pattern than you would in ready to wear.
Right.
So if you're like an 8 in ready to wear, you might be like a 12.
Oh no, or
like 16
or like a 42.
Right, yeah.
Because I can wear a size 4 dress manufactured.
Uh-huh.
And when I go to the pattern company, if I go by my bust size, which I don't.
Right.
But if I did, the rule is your biggest measurement, so to speak. So a 4 manufactured, I would get a 14 in a pattern, which means it's a whole, but
it's just a different system.
And we're going into fitting there, and we're gonna have to do that later.
And we will do that later. But just so you know, don't be afraid. And we recommended. Maple Stitch asked. She said pattern suggestions. Last time we recommended like a PJ pant or a very like relaxed fit set of slacks, and
I would say a tunic type top.
I think those are good places to start in terms of sizes. And so just don't even like let yourself be shocked by the size that the pattern tells you to make. It is simply a number. Make up a fake word in your mind if you wish, and
like my beautiful size.
Yeah, oh, I need to cut out the pineapple size, or so. I mean, just don't even worry about it.
And if you're feeling like a potato, don't think about it.
Don't call it. Oh yeah, maybe call it. Oh, this Tyra Banks size, or something like that. But don't worry about it. We'll talk a little bit about the measurements and everything, but don't worry about the number. And that has been a big challenge in my jeans class. People are like, what? I wear a 12. I'm normally a 6. And I think it's more like they think, what I think? They think it's not going to fit them.
Right.
Because they're like, wait a second.
It's just screwy.
Yeah,
right.
It's just screwy is a good word.
And, if anybody will think about it, when you buy manufactured clothes, if I go into my closet right now, I have a lot of, say, t-shirt type shirts that I have purchased and not made. And they go from small to large.
Right.
And but they fit the same.
They fit you, yeah.
Right,
they fit the same
they
body.
Fit me. And it has to do with the manufacturer. It has to do with the cut. It has to do with my body.
Yeah.
It has to do with the fabric. So, we're going to worry about getting it to fit you later.
Yeah,
that's what we're going to worry about.
Yeah, that's what we're going to worry about. So you want to, you do, also coming from quilting, maybe to garment sewing, maybe some of these fabrics look a little odd.
Right.
To you.
Well, the other thing, sticking with the pattern envelope, and so here's the deal. You go to buy a pattern. You can order one online, or I would even suggest someone that's new go to some place, that has pattern books, so you can flip through and look at the patterns, and they give some information there also. And the other thing is you can touch the pattern. You can go to the pattern drawer. You go to the company's drawer, there's a number of the pattern, you look it up, you take it out, you look at the envelope like we are, it gives you all of this information. The other thing is many of them are coded, for novice, medium level difficulty, whatever, or complex. Mm-hmm. Many of the pattern companies have a coding system. I'm trying to see if it's on here at all. I don't see anything.
Well, and I will say that this might be a place where there is kind of a new behavior coming up, a really new behavior coming up in sewing. And that is where people are in their homes printing off patterns at home. And that I don't have a statistic on this, but I know that is a super popular way. And you know what can be nice about this?
But you're jumping the gun because we're talking about starting to sew.
Well, no, people do this.
Okay.
People do this when they are starting to sew.
All right, but you didn't let me finish my suggestion.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. Because I didn't say you were going to buy this pattern or anything.
Right.
I just said you're going to go there because you can have one in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you get information on the pattern and everything. But the other thing, inside the pattern envelope, besides the pattern, you will find an instruction sheet.
Right.
You can open up the pattern and look in the instruction sheet in the store. Now, you can't open up and unfold the pattern pieces, but you can unfold and look and see if you can follow it at all, or if it does look too complex or whatever. This is why I'm talking about getting familiar. Now we can go to what you were talking about. If you feel comfortable with that or whatever.
I'll finish what I was saying about PDF patterns. So a lot of times when these designers release those PDF patterns, they've already done sew-alongs on their blogs. So you can actually look at their blogs and see the steps, and you can be like, whoa, I'm not supposed to be putting in a fly zipper yet on jeans. I need to make this. And what these sew-alongs are, they are ways for the designers to promote their patterns. And there are also websites like patternreview.com that have reviews from people, and they'll say things like, this was tight around the arms, or this is a good pattern for me, I'm a beginner, or something like that. And so I would say that, you can use the resource of that store, to see that instruction sheet. And you can use the resource of the internet, or both, to see what would work for you. But I think Mom's right. Getting a preview of that construction technique is really important.
Well, and the thing is that not all patterns are equal in their instruction.
That's right.
I like the independent pattern person. I like that whole idea. The only thing is there's an inconsistency with who has a good pattern and who has good instructions. Do you remember me teaching you to sew your very first T-shirt from a pattern?
Yeah.
And do you remember what happened?
Yeah, I don't think it worked.
You said, here's my neckband, and I said, that's impossible.
Right.
And we went, and I looked at the pattern piece because I had picked out a fairly straightforward pattern. And I was instructing her and someone else in our store because this was a project we had planned. And the neck binding was absolutely incorrect. Wrong. It would have never fit. So if you were and of course they're going, how do I make this fit? And I'm like, well, you won't.
Right.
It's wrong. This will not work. I thought maybe they were supposed to have like tripled it or something because there was no way that this pattern piece worked. I don't know where the mistake was, if someone printed it wrong, or what happened. But so if you're a beginning sewer, that could lead to frustration.
And was that like an independent pattern?
It was.
Okay.
I can remember exactly whose it was, too.
This is a different era, though, too. And here's where this comes in handy. A lot of these independent pattern designers,
You can talk to them or email them or what?
No, hold on.
Yeah.
Okay. They've got people reviewing those patterns right away. And somebody will be like, well, people are mean. They're like, I did not like this. Or they're like, there was too much ease in the sleeve.
Right.
Like almost instantaneously. So this is a little new era in
That's
the independent pattern designing too. And also I've been on the end of this where they use testers. I know probably every pattern company uses testers in some form or another.
Right.
But almost with the advent of the internet and the distribution of these patterns, it's kind of cool to see that these people know that if they flub up, they're going to get called out for it.
Yeah.
And people make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes,
right.
But they know that if something's up, that kind of like Instagram influencer who tried out that new pattern is going to be like, well, yeah, it wasn't that great, because people also go to that person to get good pattern reviews.
Well,
so,
and with the example I gave is trying to teach you that pattern, I think it was about 11 o'clock at night when we figured out that something wasn't working,
Sure.
and that person wasn't on the internet, and there wasn't a review, and
Yeah.
there wasn't a resource to go to, where if there had been, we may have been able to go and see if there were comments. Hey, this piece isn't right.
Yep.
Hey, this piece
Yep.
doesn't fit. Or I could have emailed her and said, I believe I found a major,
big problem.
error in your printed pattern.
Yes.
So, like I said, I think that person who's starting needs to pick something simple.
I agree, and I think that those like loose fitting slacks
Right.
or like a tunic top is a good place to start.
I think the other thing is, what is the book that we were using?
The Magic Pattern
The
book.
Magic Pattern book. What I liked about that book is their terminology, and they had a glossary in it.
Mhm.
So I knew what a facing was.
Right.
You can look up bias binding.
Yep.
Those things you can look up. And the other thing you need to learn how to do, besides the terminology, because the terminology is also going to let you read the instruction, is not only do you transfer those marks onto your new pattern piece, but they've got to be transferred onto the garment onto the fabric you are cutting.
Yeah, so there's like a little bit of translation happening here.
Right.
When you look at that pattern, like Mom said, tracing the pattern really helps you get to know it.
Right.
And I've run into this on the ginger jeans. There's this marking for easing that's on the knee, and it's also on the lengthen shorten line for the pants. And a lot of people miss that.
They miss it.
And it's really important. And Becca missed it, and she Googled ginger
Right.
jeans twisty leg, and a bunch of people were like, I didn't ease, so I got the twisted.
Right.
She's like, oh, that's what I did wrong, and that was
Right.
kind of cool. But just from tracing that so many times, I've got that in my brain,
Right.
that's a part of it. And so then transferring that to the pattern is really good. And we've got a pretty good video on transferring markings
We do.
to your fabric from a pattern, like at least a dart,
Right.
or it can work for lots
Works
of
for
things.
anything, sure.
And that actually recently somebody kind of tagged us on Instagram and was like, that's a great idea. And it's an old technique, but do you want to talk about marking things from the pattern at all?
Yeah, I want to talk
Yeah.
about those notches.
Okay.
Has anyone ever looked inside their couture garment that is made by Armani or in Coco Chanel's workshop or whatever and seen notches?
No.
No, you don't see notches. They don't use notches. We don't use notches. We don't want our garment to look like it was cut out on the kitchen table, okay? So what you do, you can make a mark
Yeah.
if you want, just a little hash mark on your pattern. Or the other thing you can do is make like a 1/4 inch snip
Yep.
in the pattern. That's what I do. I usually make a mark.
Mom's a snipper, or I'm a big
Yeah.
marker. And I like to instruct people to mark who are new,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes I've told people to snip and then they cut way too far in. But the snips don't go away as fast as those notches do. But
Right.
another really cool tip, and I think we've shared this on the podcast before, is if you ever cut anything out that is like a symmetrical pattern piece that's on the fold,
Oh,
to take a very tiny notch out of like the top and bottom center.
yeah,
And
you'll always know your center.
And I was explaining this to somebody. I was like, don't take a big V out. I was like,
Right.
turn your rotary cutter to the side and pretend like you're cutting off like 2 threads.
Right.
And they're like, oh, well, how will I see that? And I unfold the pattern piece and I'm like, look at how evident that is.
Right.
You take off so little while it's folded up, but then when you unfold the piece, it is super clear. Oh, that's the center top of my sleeve
Right.
or my waistband or whatever,
And you may not use that marking,
Right.
but if you're in a habit of putting it there, you'll always know where you are in your sewing. And I've done that for eons, and it's one of the best things I ever started doing.
Yeah. Well, then you just always.
Right.
have
So
it.
we're not going to leave big notches out
Yep.
on our patterns. We're
Mhm.
going to mark it with a marking pen, or we're going to, like Mallory says, if you're novice, marking, a marker is the best thing to use. A tailor's chalk, whatever, a chalk wheel, whatever. But I might make a little slit. It's just going to depend.
Well, so I think that kind of brings us to the conclusion of choose a pattern that looks doable for you. Take a look at the sizing chart and your measurements, and I think maybe the next episode should be measuring yourself.
I was going to
That's
say,
what it should be.
we're going to have to talk about measuring
Yeah, we'll
you
talk about
next.
measuring yourself next, and then we will.
So
you
want to come with the best fitting bra when we do that next time.
That's right. Wear your best fitting bra next Friday, and we will talk about how to measure yourself for
And
sizing.
all of you walkers, you cannot wear, who are listening to the podcast while you're walking, you cannot wear the sports bra. You have to wear a real bra.
Unless you wear a sports bra all the time.
Well, that's true.
Okay, just wear a nice bra, okay? Yeah. So look forward to the next episode in our series on skills for garment sewing. And thanks for listening.
So long and so happy.
Thanks for listening to Sewing Out Loud. For even more expert sewing advice, visit sewhere.com.